A trio of Democrats in Congress, Democrats in the House, on Friday, the day after tomorrow, they'll introduce this new piece of legislation. It's a proposed censure of the president for what they call his inadequate response to the white supremacist neo-Nazi rally in Charlottesville, Virginia over the weekend. The Democrats say they want to reprimand him for not, quote, immediately and specifically naming and condemning the white supremacist groups. Now, in the grand scheme of things, in terms of the ways we've got as a country to hold a president accountable, a censure is like kind of a baby step. It's like the first rung on the ladder, right? It's basically a strongly worded letter from Congress. The major consequence of a censure is that historians will make a mental note that it happened. It's literally the least lawmakers could do if they wanted to respond negatively to show displeasure with the president's defense of white supremacists yesterday. Actually, I guess I should correct that. We sort of found out last night that this is the least lawmakers can do to denounce what the president did. They can send out some strongly worded tweets that don't actually mention the president by name, but make it very clear that they themselves aren't cool with Nazis, okay? Nothing else to say about it, or the president, or whatever he might have said, but just a heads up, don't like Nazis, all right? That's the least you can do. On a scale of congressional responses to a thing like this, a censure is like a fraction of a percent stronger than one of those pointless tweets. I mean, it would be a thing that happened. It would have no real consequence. But if Congress wants to do it, they would have to actually pass this censure like an actual bill. Assuming every Democrat in the House would vote to pass this thing, assuming Paul Ryan would agree to put it on the floor, Democrats would have to scrounge up 24 Republican yes votes in order for it to pass. And so this is a test. It ought to be a pretty easy test in reasonable times. Republicans will have to decide now how much they want to be associated with what the president did yesterday and what he said yesterday. Voting for censure would be one easy, uncomplicated, practically non-consequential way that they could do that. To say that they did something, anything, however insignificant it might turn out to be in practical terms. It is almost the least they could do. I don't think anybody believes they could manage to pull it off. Joining us now is Sherrilyn Ifill. She's president and director counsel of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. I'm so glad you're here in person, Sherrilyn. It's really nice to see you.
Same.
We haven't spoken since the events of this weekend, so I just wanted first just to get your top-line reaction and how you're feeling these days after.
Well, I'm pretty enraged, actually. I'm pretty furious. Because I think, you know, anybody who was paying attention could have seen that what was going to happen this weekend was going to be something violent, was going to be something ugly. And not just what happened in Charlottesville, but the atmosphere that has been created by this president, even when he was a candidate, and that really has been allowed by those in Congress and other leaders, where he has essentially unleashed something that we have all known exists in the United States. You can't be, as I am, a civil rights lawyer without knowing that there is this element in this country and has been for a very long time. But what we have usually seen is a sense of responsibility by national leaders, a sense of responsibility by members of Congress, a sense of responsibility by the president, that even if they are on the right, there's a line that doesn't get crossed. And what you just described, you know, the unwillingness of members of Congress to do more than tweet, to do more than make oblique references, you know, to hate, disembodied hate, without actually identifying who's doing the hating. Talking about, you know, all sides, as the president did, or many sides, or both sides. This is a complete abdication of responsibility for leading this country, because this country is stitched together of many pieces. And it's a patchwork, and it's been difficult. There's been bloodshed to bring us to the point that we're at today, which is not Shangri-La, but it certainly is not 1860, and it's certainly not 1954. That took blood, that took sweat, that took lawsuits, that took sit-ins, that took sacrifice to bring us to that point. And what we're seeing is the willingness of leaders to kind of cavalierly allow it to be dissipated. And that makes me very angry. What I also am is very resolute that we will not be palmed off by tweets, by expressions of outrage, by expressions of condemnation, That's the least you can do. As you said, I have to say yesterday, the president's remarks pretty much jumped the shark. I mean, I had been part of the group that was saying, you know, get the white nationalists out of the cabinet, fire Bannon, fire Gorka. At this point, it's the president. It's the president. So now we have three branches of government. We have a Congress that has to take responsibility for what they can do, not what they can say. And there actually are things they can do if they're willing to do it, if they mean what they say. If Paul Ryan really says that he's repulsed by white supremacy, if members of Congress, you know, Republicans and Democrats have tweeted about, you know, white supremacy and we don't stand with this, then let's talk about what white supremacy actually is. Let's talk about federal courts finding that the state legislature of Texas and the state legislature of North Carolina created voter suppression laws for the purpose of discriminating against Black and Latino voters. That is white supremacy.
In action.
In action.
Yeah.
So where have they been on that? What has Paul Ryan said? We can't even get Representative Bob Goodlatte from Virginia, who issued a statement condemning the Charlottesville rally, to give us a hearing on amending the Voting Rights Act to deal with the voter suppression that has arisen since the Shelby County decision. Where's the oversight of the Justice Department? Do we just really trust Jeff Sessions to prioritize hate crimes and to prioritize the investigation of these white supremacist groups? No, we need Congress to now schedule oversight hearings of the Department of Justice, of the Department of Homeland Security, specifically to find out from them what resources are they allocating to this. We know that Jeff Sessions is allocating resources to ending affirmative action, to challenging sanctuary cities, I mean, to MS-13. He's identified his priorities. I haven't heard hate crimes and white supremacy as part of that prioritization. That's Congress's job, to make sure that the Department of Justice is properly prioritizing those things. So these are the actual, tangible things that Congress can do. We've been putting them up on our website. We put it on our Twitter timeline, because I'm afraid that the window's going to close. This is not a situation that can be resolved with platitudes. You know, Heather Heyer is dead. She was killed. People were injured. Our children, members of this country, have seen swastikas on flags and Nazi flags. We've heard homophobic slurs. We've heard racial slurs. We've heard anti-Semitic slurs in Charlottesville, Virginia. And if they think that we're going to move past this as though this is just a political moment, this is an American moment. And if people really care about this democracy, and if leaders have been elected to lead this country, then we have the right to expect of them that they will use the powers they have. I understand that their powers are limited, but they do have power, and they must use that power in this moment to get America back on track.
Sherrilyn Ifill, President and Director Counsel of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. May I ask you to stay for just one moment? Sure. I want to talk to you. I have one question for you about what this behavior by the president does to the far right in terms of whether it makes them more capable of achieving their aims. We'll be right back with Sherrilyn Ifill right after this. Stay with us.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.